I also think the colors are playing really nicely together in the fade. It's almost like this yarn was made for a fade. Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kristen and this is my little corner of the internet where I share with you guys how knitting and other fiber crafts have woven into my life. It is normally knitting over here, but sometimes things like crochet, weaving, cross stitching, that kind of stuff pops up as well. Today is episode 63 of my podcast where I share with you finished objects, works in progress, sometimes acquisitions, all of that kind of fun knitting fiber stuff. So I hope you have something cozy to drink, something to work on. I am just drinking a water today. It is about lunchtime and it is a snowy day here in Denver. Woke up to snow and was not expecting it, so that's really lovely. I love days like this where I can just kind of hibernate at home. It's really fun. I don't have a ton of admin here at the beginning of today's video. If you'd like to follow me other places, I am DoSo Knits on all the places. Here on YouTube, I'm DoSo Knits on Instagram and on Ravelry. And then in the description box down below this video, I include links to all the things that I talk about, links to my Ravelry project pages and any additional links that you might need. All of it should be right down there. So with that, since I don't have a ton of admin here at the beginning to talk about, we'll just dive right into my finished objects and I'll show you what has gotten off my needles since I last recorded. Okay, so the first thing I have to show you, oh, Sherlock is leaving. Ebony came in and Sherlock left, so that was interesting. But the first thing that I have to show you are my Desert Vista Dye Works socks for January. I have finished them. So these are socks that I knit for the Desert Vista Dye Works year-long sock-along, make-along. I used Desert Vista Dye Works Viso, which is her fingering weight base. The colorway was Ready Player One. I held the yarn double and I started at a color change. I cast on at the toe, increased to the middle stitch count in Crazy Sock Lady's DK Vanilla Sock pattern. Then I did a 3x1 rib for the entire foot. I did a shadow wrap heel and then a 3x1 rib up the leg as well. I basically knit these. I knit the first one until I was about halfway through my yarn, knit the second one until it was basically all gone, and here are my socks. So I wish the leg could be a little bit longer, but overall I used 95 grams of this yarn, and yeah, it was, I'm glad they matched. That was like a happy coincidence. I just basically knit till I was halfway and it just ended up nicely that I could then start with the next color. I had originally started the first sock and finished it on the orange stripe. So I had done this gray and then I had done an orange to do the bind off. And then when I was knitting the second sock, one of my 50-gram skeins, because I split the 100-gram in half, I ran out of yarn. So I ended up binding off that sock at this gray stripe and then I ripped the second sock back and then bound off at the same point. That way they had the same length and matched. So yeah, my first splitting wasn't perfect because I'll wind it into a 100-gram skein and then you put it on your scale and then you wind it until it says about 50 grams have been used. I usually will wind until I finish a color change, so I must have just gone 1 or 2 grams over on one of the skeins, but now they match and they're bound off at the same point, so that is pretty exciting. Shane doesn't have a ton of DK socks, so he'll be glad to have those. And yeah, it was nice to work on a DK pair of socks because they do knit up very quickly. These were on my needles for 10 days. And I used 95 grams of yarn on those and 1 skein overall. I usually use about a US 3 for DK weight socks. And yeah, I didn't do Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off. I did an elastic bind off, and that's the one where you do knit one, knit the second, and then knit them both through the back loop. I think that's what it is. I did try the Jenny's surprisingly stretchy, and I just didn't like how it looked. So I tried the elastic bind off, and I do like how these look. I think when they're not on the blockers, they flare a little, but not bad. And I think it's really only flaring because of the ribbing. But you see how they're kind of like, they're kind of wobbly and wonky, but I think it still stretches nicely. Like, that's obviously bigger than Shane's foot, and it will cinch back a little. I think it's because I had Shane try on the sock out when I had done the Jenny's, and it just didn't look like it was hugging the top of his calf, and I really wanted to make sure that his socks are going to stay up. So we'll see how this elastic bind off works. But yeah, that is my first finished object. So I have one more finished object to show you, and this is Shane's Single Malt, which is a pattern by Maxim Cyr of Les Garçons. I finished this project. So I started this in October, and I've just finished it, and here it is. I'll back up. Here's his sweater. So I still need to get photos of Shane wearing this, but it is an all over knit purl texture. You have short rows in the back collar, and then a really pretty purl bump before you start the main body texture. It has this really cool raglan detail, and that continues down the sleeve. It's a 3x1 rib on the cuffs and the bottom hem, and that's the sweater. I knit Shane the size 4, which was a 44-inch chest. This is knit in West Yorkshire Spinners The Croft Aran in the colorway Fettler. So it is a Aran weight yarn in a nice green. I used 532 grams. That is how much this sweater weighs. So about 5 1/4 skeins. I round that up to 6, but 532 grams total. I bought 7 skeins because that's what the pattern called for. Or maybe I bought one extra, I'm unsure. So I have an extra skein of this, really like a skein and a half. So I'll probably end up making a hat with the difference, but this is what it looks like. So Shane really likes this. He has worn it around the house multiple times already, and I've told him that he cannot get it dirty or ruin it until I get finished object photos of him wearing it. He keeps wearing it, but I need to get photos of him in it. But this was a really lovely knit. It got off the needles very quickly when I worked on it. It grew quickly. I would say it was about 6 rows an inch, I think, or maybe it was between 5 to 6 rows an inch. So it felt like it grew really quickly. I knit the sleeve exactly to the measurements in the pattern, and then I did the cuff. I did a sewn bind off for the cuff, so I didn't do a tubular bind off because I don't like rearranging the stitches, and I think a sewn bind off looks nice. It just has that nice almost purl texture, which kind of mimics the change there as well. And I did that for the bottom hem as well. And for the body, I knit it, I think I also knit the body exactly to the length in the pattern. I had Shane try it on multiple times when I was working the sleeve. I'd put it on the barber cords, have him try it on to make sure. But yeah, I would say Shane is probably a size 4 in Maxim Cyr's patterns, which is nice that I don't need many modifications. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to talk about. This yarn blocks and blooms really nicely once washed, and it has a nice drape. I've asked Shane if he likes how it fits. He really loves how it fits. He says it feels like a, what was the word he used? comfy sweatshirt but sophisticated kind of thing, versus his his Montrealer hoodie, which is like a comfy, more not put together look. And this is like a put together sweater. Yeah, he really likes it. I need to get finished object photos. It was a fun knit. I don't know what else to say. It was on my needles for 105 days. Obviously, I didn't work on it every day. I think I could have knit it a bit faster, but I think Shane is happy with it now that it is done. And I love it. I would probably knit another one of these. What I thought was interesting about this sweater is I did try it on after I had Shane try it on one time. And this is a 44-inch chest. I normally knit a 48-inch chest, which is what this is that I'm wearing here. This is my Willow branch sweater, which I finished for a test knit for Tiffany Lind. It's in Wool of the Andes, worsted weight, Merlot Heather. I love this sweater, but this is a 48-inch bust. This is probably one of my best fitting sweaters. It fits me really nicely. It's not too oversized. Some of my sweaters have been too oversized. But with this one, this is a 44-inch, and I thought it would be way too small, but it actually fits pretty nicely. And if you give me 1 second, I will show you. So this is me in the single malt. I think it fits pretty nicely. It might be a little snug over my bust, but like overall, this is what this sweater looks like on me. I'd probably want maybe 1 or 2 more inches of ease. But it is nice to know that like a 44 is something that I could do. I probably would add bust darts. And like I said, I think a 46 is a little more flattering. The 48 feels really nice. But this, I think, looks pretty nice. But yeah, and now you can kind of see what it looks like on. I am a little bit bigger than Shane, mostly just because of my bust and just a little more, I carry a lot more of my weight in the upper part of my body. But overall, we can kind of share this sweater. I think I would have to wear it over a specific kind of pants. But overall, I think it looks nice. But we'll switch back into my Willow branch. And I'll kind of just show you in my Willow branch how it fits a little bit differently. So you can see around my midsection, it's got a lot more room. It just feels a little more flattering to me. It's not so, you know, tight. It's not as stretched around my breast, but that's kind of what my Willow branch looks like. So I think anything from like the 46 to 48 inch range I can wear, and the 44 is like a, it'd probably be like a negative ease kind of fit that I would go for. Maybe when I do like my mini mock neck tank, because I think I might want a little closer to fitted to maybe negative ease. 44 to 45 might be that. Maybe a 46, and a 48 is kind of my sweet spot for sweaters. But yeah, this is my Willow branch. I will say the biggest difference between Shane and myself is when I tried on his sweater after he had, and I think I had 6-ish more inches for him to get it to the length that he would like. And for me, I was like, I would start the ribbing right now for myself. So my torso is a lot shorter, which makes knitting sweaters for myself maybe about the same amount of time. His sweaters need a little less circumference, but more length, and mine need a little more circumference, but less length. So maybe they about even out. But yeah, those are kind of the sweaters that I finished. That's Shane's newest sweater. Since he's already worn it a couple of times around the house, he is very knit worthy, and I need to go ahead and just start working on another sweater for him. I have sweaters for myself that I have to do too, but want to do. But yeah, it's my sweater knitting era year. But yeah, I'm excited about that. 6 skeins out of my stash. It was on the needles for quite a while, 105 days. That's like 3.5 months, which isn't too bad. And I know I could cut that time down if I focused a little bit more. But yeah, those are all of my finished objects that I have to share with you today. So we'll move into works in progress. Sorry, I know I'm a bit rambly, but I just like talking to you about my knitting. So the next thing I have to show you is my iris hat, which I mentioned briefly in my last episode, which is a pattern by Sari Nordland. It is a top-down, 1x1 rib tapped, and this is where I'm at. It is very bright. The camera is doing it justice. It is a bright yellow hat. I am using 2 strands of yarn held together. It is Neighborhood Fiber Company's Rustic Fingering, which is a single ply. It's the colorway Pin North. And then the second color is La Bien-Aimée Kumo, which is a Surrey alpaca lace weight, and the colorway is La Bien-Aimée Yellow. Holding them together for the 1x1 rib. And this is actually yarn that I had frogged from a different hat. It was a slouchy beanie. It just ended up being too big for my taste. So I frogged it and I'm reusing it. This is what my skein looks like now. I have it in one of my yarn cozies. And I frogged it. I kept the yarns together, and so I'm just reknitting everything. And yeah, I have quite a ways to go. I'm supposed to continue increasing until about 14 inches for a triple brim, but I have decided I'm going to do a double brim, so I think I'm only going to go to about 11 inches. Now, I just got this new tool in from Twice Sheared Sheep, and I think it's going to be perfect for this project. So this is the Work Until tape measure marker, and so it's a tape measure that you can set your marker to. So I want to work to 11 inches. So you can slide this to whatever, you know, if you had to work for 4 inches, but I've set it for 11. It looks like it can go up to 12. You stick it on your needles between 2 stitches, and then I can just lay it down and see how far I'm at. So right now I'm at about, when I start from the top to the bottom, I can see I'm at 8 1/4-ish, and I have to go to 11. So that's a lot nicer instead of having to, you know, pull out my tape measure and be like, how many inches have I done? It's pretty nice. And the instructions came with, so say I was measuring from the bottom of the crown, I could put a stitch marker at the crown and then measure to the stitch marker. That way you don't have to like guess where you're measuring to. But I think this is a really nifty tool. I bought 2 of these. I saw it in some of the advents that people were opening. And I was like, that is one tool that I am going to have to get. And it's just really nice to kind of show you how much farther you have to knit. So that's pretty cool. And this is a very bright hat. The Surrey will make the hat very nice to wear in the winter. It'll be pretty water repellent and warm. But I have no rush with this project. This has been on my needles for 202 days. It's a long time. But since it's 1x1 rib, I just really can't work on it. You know, like, I have to work on it when I can look at my hands. So for me, that's kind of hard to find time to. But I also don't like working on it, you know, when we're at home not doing much. So I've kind of put this in our car that we use for when we run errands. I leave it in the center console because when we're out running errands, I can look at my hands when we're driving around. There's usually enough daylight that it'll be fine. And then I can work on it while we're driving around. That's gotten me a couple inches on it over the last couple of weeks, and I think it's been working pretty nicely. So I have no rush to finish this hat, and it will be going back in the car, which is why last week when I mentioned it, I didn't have it because it was in the car, and I didn't know if I would have it to show you today because Shane took the car, but he came home. So this is my iris hat. I love the increases on this. I think they are gorgeous. And now I just got to get through the 1x1 ribbing for quite a while. But it's kind of a comfort project. I don't have to worry about it. It's something that's always going to be there for me. I don't have to worry if we're out running errands, if I need to bring something, because I know it's in the car and I know I have a lot of time to work on it. The next work in progress I want to show you is some progress on these socks. So these are my Opal Tortoise socks is what I'm calling them. And I finished the first sock. This is yarn by Opal. It is their sock yarn. And this is the little tortoise. And I have started the second sock and made pretty decent progress. We went and saw a movie last weekend, and so I brought this to work on it. I was able to do probably 30 to 40 rounds on the leg during the movie. I'm doing 50 rounds on the leg, and then I'm doing 80 rounds on the foot. These are socks that are going to be for Shane. They've been on the needles for 125 days because they've just kind of been some backup socks. I've just started doing the shadow wrap heel on these. So I'm about a couple rounds into the heel, and then these will be good to go back into my, these are usually my work socks. So when I have meetings or things to where I just need to be paying attention, not necessarily taking notes or doing or presenting, but listening, active listening, I find very helpful to have something for my hands to do. So these are my focus socks. And yeah, that's kind of where these are at. They're just making steady progress. I know if I worked on them, you know, at home, I'd probably make more progress on them. But these are also sometimes, if I don't want to work on the iris hat when we're out and about, I can work on these, which has also been pretty nice. Just some nice, simple socks. Okay. So the next work in progress I have to show you is a new cast on. This is my Volcano Trail, which is also a pattern by Maxim Sear. And this has been in the back of my mind for a little while. So this is a fingering weight KAL that you hold different colors together to get this marled effect. I saw it on Needles at the Ready recently, and when I was watching them talk about it, I was like, I know what I'm going to use for that. So I have this Tabby Cat fade set that I'd gotten from Stranded Dye Works when we were in Germany. It was like right after I started knitting again, and it was one of my first indie dyers, and I fell in love with this fade set, and I started knitting a Vertices Unite with it, ripped it out, and it's just been caked up waiting for me to use it. So that fade set had 5 colors, but this pattern it's for 4. But the first color in the fade set's like a really bright yellow, which after saying my hat, I was like, I wasn't really a fan of the bright yellow, which is ironic because of my bright yellow hat. But I just didn't want yellow in this cowl. So I did the 4 remaining colors, and this is the 4 colors. Oof, I tried. Let's try this again. Here are the 4 colors. So this is the order that my cowl is going to be. So you cast on and start with your first color A, and you hold it double and you knit the top cuff. And then I switched to holding A and B together, and you do some garter rows, and now I'm holding B double for these rows. So you alternate where you do just this, this and this, just this, this and this, just this, this and this, just this, which is very nice. What's also really nice about this pattern is you cast on in the round and you knit every round to get this top border. And right now it's curling, but you knit it quite long, and then at the end I'm going to fold it over and sew it down so that you just have a, you know, just like a stockinette edging. But then you start working flat. So you see how it's not connected here anymore? So you start working flat. That way I can still keep knitting every round for my garter stripes. It's so clever. I also think the colors are playing really nicely together in the fade. It's almost like this yarn was made for a fade. So I'm loving this. I just wanted a quick, it's not really quick. I wanted a fun stash busting accessory project on my needles, and this is that. It is fun. It's going to get 4 skeins of stash out of my yarn stash, and it's so fun to see the colors work up. I also think it's just going to be a really fun color that matches a lot of my wardrobe, and with like this orange, I feel like is leaning almost like a tanny coppery kind of brown, so it's just really nice. And then going into the greens, I'm so excited for this. It also has in the center here a nice slip stitch pattern, kind of reminiscent of like the Weekender if you've seen it from Andrea Mallory. But at the end, I'm supposed to take this color and go over that all the way, so like that color kind of connects throughout. But I'm kind of digging the slipped marled stitches, so I'll have to see if I want to do the yellow tanny coppery auburn, or do I just keep these. But yeah, this has just been fun to work on. I really haven't put that much time into it. It's been on my needles for 6 days so far. I started it last weekend kind of on a whim after I finished Shane's sweater, just because I wanted something fun to work on. It's also on pretty nice size needles. It's on a US 6, so it has a nice drape. It just feels really lovely. And yeah, I really, really like it. Overall, if I think about the cost of this KAL, it's kind of an expensive KAL. It's 4 hand-dyed skeins of yarn. I probably wouldn't like go out shopping for this KAL, and I wouldn't have bought like these colors for it. But considering this yarn has been in my stash for, I bought it in May of 2020. So it's been in my stash for a while. It's kind of like over time, I don't know. Does it get easier to pull from your stash and not think about the cost? I think so. But I love it so much. The orange is at the top. So you start at the top and you work down. You also work increases so it gets slightly bigger toward the bottom. But I think it's just going to be so nice. It's going to be a nice tall KAL. It's going to be warm. And I love it. So this is my Volcano Trails that I'm knitting with my Stranded Dye Works Tabby Cat Fade on the merino nylon base. Also, Stranded has announced that they are going to close Stranded, so make sure you follow them, follow Jude, see when their next final shop update is if you want to snag anything. I will miss this yarn, but I had started this before Jude made that announcement, and I'm kind of glad I did, because I think part of me would have held on to it because it's special. You can't get it anymore. I mean, this fade is already special because I don't think Jude has dyed it since I saw this release, but I'm glad it's on my needles and I'm seeing it worked up, and I'm so glad I'm doing it in this faded effect versus the Vertices Unite. I think I'll get a lot more wear out of this, and just like a nice KAL will be nice for cold, wintry, snowy days like this. So this is my Volcano Trail by Maxim's here. And I've put it in this project bag that my friend made me for my birthday. I love it. It's a little snug, honestly, for the 4 skeins, but since I'm only ever using 2 at once, I usually just work on this at home and I just take out the skeins that I need when I'm working on them. But yeah, that is my Volcano Trail. It's a fun project. I really enjoy it. It's a really good stash buster. Okay, so I have 2 more projects to show you. The next one is also a new cast on. This is a Musselburgh by Ysolda Teague. I have started another one, and I'm knitting this with Spin Cycle's Nocturne. My friend went to the Spin Cycle store and I had her pick me up a couple skeins of Nocturne. This is the label. So Nocturne's like on their darker base. It's similar to the dyed in the wool. It's still 100% merino wool. It's non-superwash. And this is what's left of my first skein. So this is the colorway Skin. So I asked for like a moody green. And this is where my hat is so far. Isn't it so cool? So I wanted to start a Musselburgh in SpinCycle yarn because SpinCycle is hosting a SpinBurgh KAL, I think is what they're calling it. Basically, you knit a Musselburgh in SpinCycle yarn. It has to be at least 50% SpinCycle for it to count. But they're giving away great prizes, and I've been wanting another Musselburgh, and when I heard Bethany was going there, I was like, this is all just like, all these events are aligning. So I started this, and this has kind of been my meeting project, honestly, because it's so easy to pick up when I'm not having to think. This was like how much I did yesterday. This is my new stitch marker from Simply Serving. It's a peppermint mocha. I love it. But yeah, it's already grown so much. It's a little cramped on these, on my little needles, but that's okay. I use a 16-inch needle. I'm doing this on a US 4 because this is a sport weight yarn, and I think that's one reason why it's knitting up so quickly. Usually when I do my fingering weight ones, I think I usually do a US 2.5. It's a 3mm. This is a 3.75. I think 3.5. 3.5. And so for my fingering weights, I usually do a 3mm, I believe. So it grows really nicely. Also, I just love how it's green and shifts slightly, but like overall from a distance, it looks cohesive. So I got 2 skeins of this. I plan to just do the whole hat in my Nocturne base, and I love it. It's just such a great project. I won't explain to you how the Musselburgh construction and everything works, because if you've been here before, you probably know about it, or if you've probably heard about it from other people, but basically it's a double thick hat that you knit really long and then fold it on itself. And we'll go through the whole process as we work through this hat, but I'm loving this. I don't know what else to say. It's also just really fun to see the colors change with this, because I know it's a long hat, but watching the colors change as I work through it is also very motivating. This has been on my needles for 4 days. I'm getting 6 stitches per inch, and I'm doing the adult medium. What I ended up doing is you do the increases until you can measure over 1 inch to see how many stitches per inch you get. And I know in the past my SpinCycle, like dyed in the wool, has grown because I've done a couple projects with their yarn before. So what I ended up doing is I did the increases, and then I steam blocked like just this top part to see what the change was. Before blocking, I was getting about 7 stitches an inch. After steam blocking, I was getting 6. So I knew it was going to grow. So I went with 6 stitches per inch. So that way when it grows, it's not going to be too big for my head. This is my hat. Ah! I'm so excited for this. Are you excited for me? I love green, and I think a green Musselburgh will be perfect. So yeah, I don't know if you're joining in on this KAL. Check it out if you have any SpinCycle in your stash that you'd like to use. I think it's a really fun knit along. And yeah, that's my new cast on. I'm addicted to this hat. I love it so much. And so then we'll move on to my final work in progress. This is my Eastwind jacket by Emily Foden, and I've made some decent progress on this. Last time I showed it to you, I was not at the pocket split. It's where this little pine cone is, and I've made some good progress. So this is a jacket that is knit in pieces. So I'm still working on the front right panel. Like I said, I was at the pine cone last time. So I have knit more. I have cast off for the pocket, And then you cast back on for your pocket with a provisional cast on, so you can see my contrasting string here. And then you continue. You do some increases. This is the armpit gusset for, you know, a little more room. And then I've cast on for the sleeve because it's like this really big drop shoulder kind of effect. So like it'll sit here and then those kind of go down and then you knit your cuff a little bit. So yeah, this is a little more progress on my Eastwind. It has this really beautiful cable and you might be able to see, I think you can see it a little better today, that kind of texture stitch pattern. So I am using a couple different skeins of yarn for this and I really need to cake up more. So this is what I have left of my first skein. This is West Yorkshire Spinners Fleece Jacob DK. This is the color medium gray. And I'm holding it with Rowan Kid Silk in the colorway Smoke. Holding those together for my main color. It's very fuzzy. It's going to be very warm. My gauge is a little off, so I'm knitting the size 2 to end up getting between a size 2 and a size 3. It should be about 58 inches, so about 10 inches bigger than like the sweater I'm wearing today, which I think will be nice for like a jacket. I think I will be able to put that on over most of my clothes, which is the goal. You don't want a jacket that you can't put on like other layers. Honestly, it's been fine. You knit it back and forth, so it's nice purling practice. I did take a break on this a little bit after I had finished the pocket. Because my gauge is off, I was a little worried about the width of this because it kind of looks pretty small. And in the pattern and the schematic, they show how wide this part should be post blocking. And I was a couple inches short. I was about 11-ish inches and I need about 13-ish. So I was a little worried. So what I ended up doing is I put it on, well actually I just took the needles off, soaked the whole thing, and then laid it out to dry, and it took a couple days to dry because of the mohair, but this did end up blocking out to about 13 inches, so I know this is going to, you know, it's going to be the right size. It's just a little scary knitting things in pieces, but I'm hitting the measurements in the schematic, and so I'm just putting faith in the process. But I did, essentially it just became a big swatch because I put basically this part on hold and blocked it. And it's just a big swatch. So this is the right front piece. Once I finish this, I'll have to do the left front and then the whole backs. But this has only been on my needles for 24 days. And I had a couple days where I had to block. Hi. It's been fun. Now that I've cast on for the sleeve, it is a lot longer. But I'm enjoying it. My row counter app is very crucial for this project. So in the app, I have multiple counters going. So I have my main counter, which counts the total number of rows I've done. I have a counter linked to the repeat for the cable. So it pops up and tells me when I need to do a cable row. And I have a counter for the little twist cable for the body. So it'll pop up and tell me when I need to do that on a row. So that has been very crucial. I've also, for the entire pattern, because it tells you to like knit to this many inches and then separate for the pocket. Knit to this many inches and then cast on for the sleeve. Knit your sleeve this many inches. So on my global counter, because I know I'm going to have to repeat for the left side, I'm putting things like, oh, on row 80 is when I separated for the pocket. So I'm putting a reminder in like, separate for pocket on row 80. So then when I go to do the next side, when I get to row 80, it'll be like, separate for pocket. And then I know I'm knitting them exactly the same. And row 80 was just a random number. Because it's all to measurement, so I'm using my swatch to tell me how to do things. So, for example, the sleeve is where I'm taking a slight modification. Because I'm doing the size 2 to get a width of size 3-ish, between 2 and 3, so I'm doing the size lengthwise for the 3, but widthwise for the 2. Anyway, I use my gauge. So I get 6 rows per inch, and so if I have to knit to 9 inches, I know that's 9 times 6, 54 rows. I hope that made sense in my rambling. But this is my piece so far. It doesn't look like much, but it's been a lot of knitting, and I've really been enjoying it. I'm almost done with my first skein, honestly, of both of these, and so I need to grab a few more. The one thing I will say that has been a little annoying is the Rowan Kid Silk has had 2 knots so far. The first knot, I let it slide. I was like, oh, that's fine. There can be some knots and some skeins. But then a few rows later, there was another knot, which is annoying. So that's just more ends that I have to weave in. I'm trying to see if I can find it. I can only find one right now, but you can see right here I have this long mohair string, and that's because I have a knot right there. So I just knit 1 stitch and then pulled enough out and then knit the next stitch, so that way I have both my ends here and the knot is kind of hanging down. I'll have to weave it in later. But that's happened twice, which is honestly really annoying. Oh, here it is. Here's the second one. See, so I did it again here. Actually, this knot came apart, so I have my 2 strings. So I have ends here and another end there. And they are only like a couple rows apart, so that was kind of annoying. So that's the only thing. But overall, I'm really enjoying this. I'm so ready to have this jacket when it's done. Part of me wants it to be done for this winter, and the other part of me knows it's not going to be done in time. But you can have wishful thinking. But all in all, that's all of my projects that I have to show you today. I have done a little bit on my Attune shawl. However, it looks very similar to the last time, but I am very close to the border on that project. So when I get to that, I will show that to you next time. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Otherwise, I have also been doing a little bit of spinning, but I still have 1 bobbin working on my wheel. So when I finish a bobbin, I'll have that to show you. I want to start another sweater. I was thinking about swatching for one just to have it kind of ready to go. And maybe that'll be something that I work on when I finish one of my smaller projects, like one of my hats or that KAL. I kind of like the idea of having like 1 or 2 sweaters and like a bigger project, but I also know that I need to finish this Attune shawl. That way I don't have too many big projects on the needle, so maybe that'll be an incentive. Maybe one of my big projects is off, I can start another big one. But yeah, that's basically all of my knitting. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I know it was a little bit rambly, but that's just kind of how it goes sometimes. I thank you for joining me. I hope this provided a little bit of inspiration or company while you were hanging out today. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe so you see when I post future videos. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can buy me a coffee or use any of the affiliate links linked down below. Affiliate links help support the channel, but it's no extra charge to you. And I will see you guys again in a couple weeks for my next podcast episode. But until then, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, I hope you enjoy winter. And I'll see you guys again in a couple weeks. Thanks for hanging out with me.